The penal laws began in the 17th century and actually persisted in some of the provisions of it into the 20th century. The laws were part of the colonisation of Ireland by the English, and the way they were applied varied quite a bit over the years. In Cromwellian times, they were particularly severe. Catholic clergy were supposed to leave the country, and those that remained were subject to different kinds of persecution. In some places, in many places, they were murdered because of their religion. So in order to do the Roman Catholic services, the Mass, they had to do them in secret places that were hidden. The Mass Rock is part of an outcome of the penal laws, and the stories about the Mass Rocks persist to this day. Another part of the laws in general were they banned Irish music, they banned the speaking of Gaelic. I think they banned Irish clothes. They banned marriage between Protestant and Catholic. I think at the worst stage, marriage between Catholics was banned. So, and it tried to wipe out the clergy completely. So it covered every aspect of native culture. There's a number of tracks from different directions coming together at where the Mass Rock is.
Well, from the main road below up to the grave, that was the main track. And then come from the grave to the stone. That was the next bounce.
Yes.
And then go from the stone to the Mass Rock itself.
What's the grave?
The grave was that when the monk was shot, he there for a bit, you see, and then their whatever order he was from, you see, they'd have them collected in so much time.
And he'd be buried properly.
He'd be carried away and as well as put right.
What happened at the Mass Rock in the story that you heard and was handed down?
That he was shot on the rock. The man stood in the stone, and he spotted his man up in the rock, and he shot him. That was that. As you see, the spot where the blood like ran down never grew right grass. Certainly the briars grew over it, but underneath the briars it was like
a bare. So
Only.
when he was shot, his blood landed on a patch of the ground,
ran down the rock,
and it's still
to be seen there.
Yeah,
the red spot.
There's
the stone.
There's a big stone, a big boulder.
Yes.
And there's marks on that.
Oh, the man's legs.
Yes.
And the dog's paws and the crack of the whip. They used to have the dog anyway that attract the priest or track any person. His two legs are buried in the rock, are marked in the rock, and the dog's paws.
And the mark of the whip, is that there?
Oh, that's there.
Yeah.
You'll see the crack of the whip quite clear.
Very good.
Like you'd lace an old whip down into the stone.
And you have a particular connection with it in that you were told or asked to keep the path clear.
Oh, there was a curate here, Father Jack Murphy. He was a man who was going around shooting pheasant and duck and thing, and rabbits.
Yeah.
And to make it better, what he was beat up and shooting rats.
Oh, right.
For in the summertime when the stack had been near the drain, if we were the shot, the rat would be in the stack, and he'd go to it for the rats are apple dervis. At first he'd land the rat. The rat would not go and jump when in the showing, but he'd land him.
Go away. So he was a good shot.
He was a good shot, certainly he was a good shot. He was stone mad for shooting, and that come back to the rock then. He often, we were telling him about the rock, and then we went to see it several times. And then some evenings he'd be saying, he'd sit down the rock and read in the pipe. He was a man smoking almost, reading in the pipe. And that's what he often said to me. The only thing you have to do, only to keep the track clear for any person that want to see it, to see it.
That was Pádraig O Mahony from Toames East speaking in his kitchen about the mass rock that's on his land. He has, through his life, kept the path to the mass rock, as Father Murphy told him to do, clear. So we're going to head now to travel the path. I'm here now with local archaeologist Bernedette McCarthy and her husband Joseph.
This meadow is amazing, isn't it? Like, it's been allowed just to do its own thing. And, you know, it hasn't been sprayed, there's been no heavy machinery brought in here. And it's a great habitat. And you've got the scrubland above then, and the wood, it's actually reverting to native woodland. Like, there's baby oak trees up there. And it's because this man is happy to leave it, do that. So there are a lot of places like this that have been destroyed now by machinery, and they're just, you know, improved for farmland or whatever. But what do you lose then, you know?
Yeah.
This is a pretty ancient path. So if you look at the old maps too from around 1840, you can see lanes going in. They don't have the mass rock marked. But that's not unusual, because I think mass rocks are very rarely marked on old maps. And even though there wouldn't have been the penal laws anymore in 1840, they were kind of just looked down on. So they generally weren't put on maps. They're kind of clandestine places, I suppose. You know, but you can see that there were a lot of lanes going into the centre of this area in 1840. It was actually less wooded then as well. It seems to have reverted a bit to woodland since. But like Pádraig said, there was a big wood here in the 18th century, you know, or the 17th, whenever his story happened. Yeah.
So on the map they show a lot of tracks.
Yeah, they show a lot of tracks. This one and another one from over near his house over there to the east. After Pádraig told me about these sites and that he wanted them to be more widely known, I got them added to the record of monuments and places, so that gives them a degree of protection, I suppose.
Yes. And we're looking at a map.
And also
on
that
the phone.
any you know, if anyone wants to access, this is archaeology.ie, and they've got a historic environment viewer. So it's all the monuments that are afforded legal protection in Ireland under the National Monuments Act and amendments.
Okay.
So this is we're down here right now near the gate. Yeah, that red dot, that was a monument that was already known about. That's a Fia, which is over there, where that flag iris is.
Wow.
It's a wet patch. And that was a cooking
dig
spot. It? No, you're not allowed to actually excavate these monuments unless there's a very good reason, like if you're building a major road or a house. And even then you mightn't be allowed to do it. It depends. You're actually not supposed to disturb the ground there. Once it's protected. So that Fia, it's that wet patch over there, and that was a cooking spot where they had a pit and they'd put stones into the pit and to heat up the water. Hot stones, yeah. So it could be from the Bronze Age or even into the medieval period, but quite ancient anyway. This is the land. It's like a whole kind of wild area running south. So this is the grave he was talking about. This is the stone with the marks of the hound's feet, and it's like a sort of penitential station, I suppose you'd call it, would be the official term. And then this is the mass rock itself.
Wow.
And then up here, further up in his land, you've got a ring fort, and you've got another ring fort and a souterrain over there. And at the crossroads above on the hill, at the top of our road, where it meets his road coming down, it's called Krishnalanav, the crossroad of the children. It's a Keane, So infants were buried at the crossroads in the past, you know, from the Toames area.
Wow.
And it makes you wonder, was there always some kind of site of worship here, like up above there where the children were buried, or here where the mass rock was before there was ever a mass rock? You know, like going back, could there always have been something on this hill?
Nature,
you know?
Nature worship or some form.
Who knows? Yeah, there could have been something through the generations remembered, you know? Yeah. So anyway, will we keep going up the hill?
Yeah.
So this
So
is
here we are. We're
this
at
is the grave. According to Pádraig, this is the grave of the priest who was murdered above at the Mass Rock, which is further on
Another
to
bit.
the south of us. Yeah, uphill. And I didn't really know what to call it when I reported it to the National Monument Service. I called it an anomalous stone group, which is a very vague term you use when you don't know the date or nature of something.
Yes.
Like it's a ring of stones, but you can't call it a stone circle because only one of the stones here is upright. It's a ring of
Yes.
5 stones. So that one is upright, which would be what you'd get in a stone
Yes.
circle.
But,
But these ones, the other
think
4 are
that
flat.
that it has human involvement, though,
Oh, it's
wouldn't
definitely,
you?
it's 100% man-made or human-made. Yeah.
Yes.
4 of the stones are flat, and that one is upright. And then over there in the corner, you can't see it now because it's so overgrown. If you came back in the winter, you'd see some quartz over there. So you
Okay.
often get, maybe you know about quartz, that you often get it at prehistoric sites or early Christian sites, or even kind of in the west of Ireland in graveyards in the modern period.
Yes, yes.
And it was seen as symbolic quartz because it was so
Light.
pure and sparkling and white.
Yeah.
And there's a number of hawthorn trees planted here, or possibly they sprung up and were left grow here.
Yes.
But they're quite, my friend Daniel Buckley, an ecologist, was here yesterday, and he thought they were quite old. That they kind of had a look that they were left to grow here on purpose, or planted even.
Yes.
So you often get sacred hawthorns at ritual
Significant
sites like
sites.
holy wells. Like, for example, in Ballyvourney, there's a billa, or a sacred tree. So,
At Goyvaerts well.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. So, you know, that's interesting, the fact that there are hawthorns here. So, I mean, this is definitely man-made, whether it's prehistoric or modern, I couldn't tell you, but it is old, anyway.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's quite significant, so. I mean,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
worthy, it's
It is
worthy
a
of being
monument.
visited.
It's a place of significance just in itself,
Yes.
because it's an old monument, I suppose, but you've got the layers of folklore too then. Yeah. You know, people have forgotten it, but the landowner always remembered it and took care of
Yes.
it. So
But
that's
it's to keep that
to keep the
connection
tradition alive.
alive
Yeah.
into the
Yeah,
future.
and the main
with
risk always with these places is that
diggers.
land gets sold, yeah, and diggers come in,
Diggers.
everything's wiped out.
Yeah.
You know, and even I was looking at the mass rocks around the Macroom area on that archaeology.ie website last night of interest, and I saw that there was one in either in Ballyvourney or Killamatra, that area, that got destroyed in the recent years. I mean, I don't know when it exactly happened, but
It has-
like it was recorded, but then
They've
the
removed it.
pasture was improved, and they may not have even known there was a historic monument on their land. You
Yeah,
know, that's what
yeah.
happens sometimes. So
I suppose that's the attention given to the place that keeps it alive, really.
it is, yeah.
If people
yeah,
living
yeah.
around
Remember
give
it,
attention
yeah.
to it.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. So
it'll
this
keep
was
going.
always, this was always a significant place, I suppose, in Toames.
And even the view from here.
Yeah.
You know,
well,
it's
yeah.
quite
Well, it is.
significant,
When we
like.
walk along now, you can see the Gera below.
You can,
yeah.
and you can see the mountains. You can see
Yeah.
Malachanish. I don't know if you can see the Paps.
You can see. I think so. You can see Mushra anyway.
Yeah.
Except it's cloudy today.
Yeah. Well, we
So-
can just see the corner of it there. Look.
Yeah. Yeah. You have a better view as you go along. But yeah, I mean, the fact that this is here with a good view too would imply it could be prehistoric.
Yes.
Because stone circles and rock art from, you know, like the Neolithic or Bronze Age, like megaliths were all often in places that had a very good view, especially to the west with wedge tombs or southwest.
Oh.
So, I mean, it is interesting that, there could always have been something here.
The townland of Toames, or 3 townlands, comes from Toame, which is a barrow or man-made mound, usually a burial one. There has been speculation that it actually applies just beyond its bounds to the church mound at Macroom, but the actual one whence the name has been taken has not been identified.
Ah. Very good. And Macroom is very significant historically.
It is like
Was it a diocesan or a
well, it was
significant?
It was
It's just nearby.
we were our own parish before it was put into Kilmichael, Maclona Parish,
Okay.
and I mean you probably know as much as me about this because you're from this parish.
That's the thing.
But it was a 12th century church.
Yeah.
But it could have been an earlier church there because there's a Ballon stone at the gate going into the churchyard that's been preserved. And it was found somewhere in the area of the churchyard. And a Ballon stones come from the early medieval period between 400 and 1200. And some of them, they think they could either have been used like fonts for holy water, or they might have been used for grinding food, or even for grinding...
they have a hollow in it.
for grinding grain to make bread for the Eucharist in some cases.
Yes.
Yeah, they have a hollow in them.
And a stone in the hollow.
Later on then, when they were kind of not in use anymore, people treated them like they were holy wells because the water would
Holy
build
water
up
fonts.
in the hollow.
Yeah.
Yeah, and anyway, one of those is there, so that means it must date from before.
And the site also has
yeah.
it has a round circular wall which is suggestive of antiquity, and the mound has been altered and regularized to accommodate it by bringing earth up to make to create a ring on the top of the hill. And before the trees grew up around it, there would have been a fine view out there, which is suggestive of early medieval choices of sites of importance, and it remained the parish church up until the end of the 16th century, and was used as a burial ground thereafter and to the present day.
It's associated with St. Finbar anyway.
Yes.
It's named in the Middle Irish life of Saint Finbar as one of his one of the first churches he founded coming down from Gugan on the way to Cork, and it's named, and the Nave Hennicus has names two saints who were the third and the ninth bishops of Cork who were associated with the place.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it is quite significant.
It is. It was an important place, and the church is very big. You can see, like, there was a lot of investment at the time put into the church building.
Yeah.
And
But the church
in the 12th century.
Is
or
12th century?
Probably 12th, or it has to be 12th actually, yeah. Or possibly 13th. I mean, some people would argue, well, there are later features in it.
Yes.
So, I mean, you know, it's I suppose you'd broadly call it later medieval.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it would have been influenced by the European orders coming.
Yeah, well, yeah, and there were reforms in the church at that time where churches got bigger and
they were kind of standardised.
yeah,
It appears to have been a parish church rather than a monastery, according to the bishop's visitations.
Okay.
So the orders would have been less significant, but the feature that came in with them that spread into parish churches was the moving from having a west door to having the entrance on the south and a larger window on the west wall.
and it has some, you know, very large east windows are still surviving. Yeah, it's a beautiful building.
It's also nave and chancel, I believe.
There's
There's a remnant of a dividing wall and a narrowing
you got that
up
from,
near the altar, which was an influence that the Normans brought in on a wide scale, though it may have already been spreading before their time.
I didn't research this beforehand, but I'd say it's kind of a multi-period structure, all from the 12th century onwards anyway.
We're kind of digressing really from
anyway,
from
I guess the
reason
we mentioned exactly, that's
it's quite close.
Patrick was saying that the cleric was supposed to have come from there up the hill here trying to escape.
Yes.
So I mean, once you had the dissolution of the monasteries and the Reformation, and later on you had the penal laws, it could have been any time in history during this time, but I mean it is believable that something like that really did happen. And that's not just folklore, because I mean folklore is real memories, even if they get a little bit changed along the way.
Yes, but it's documented as well. There's a book. I've read a book of all the priests murdered.
Okay, wow.
You know, a big long list, and it all comes from Trinity Library, Louvain, and there's a couple of other sources.
Very interesting,
and it's
Yeah.
And it's written in a way as propaganda,
Right. Yeah.
but the details are all very
Yeah.
precise.
Okay.
As to date they were killed, where they were killed,
Yeah.
how they were killed.
Yeah.
You know, so
So I suppose that must have happened here to whoever this man was. He must have
Yeah.
been kind of charismatic, or everyone remembered him anyway, and it's a pity we don't know his name.
It's interesting
We'll go
that he says that it was post-Cromwellian, because you had the largest and most sustained persecution in that period. Thereafter, the penal laws into the early 18th century were as strict as they were then, but they were only sporadically enforced
yeah.
based on who the local landlords and the magistrates were, and how much of a bother the priest made himself to the Protestant
Authorities.
Okay.
ascendancy.
Yes,
Well, this guy
yes.
was shot anyway, so they must have had muskets at that point.
Like, I'm trying to get a picture, Bernadette, of mass rocks in the country. Are there places where there are particularly more of them, or how many?
Yeah.
That kind of stuff.
Well, I've read a PhD thesis by Hilary Bishop, who I think is at the University of Liverpool, and she did her PhD on Corcoran Ross, this diocese, the Mass Rocks. So she found, I think there were just over 100 recorded on the Record of Monuments and Places, which is our official legal record of archaeological sites, which we're in the process of adding this one to it. She said there were just over 100 recorded there, but she actually found, I think, around 400 in Cork
The area of
during her
Cork and
research. I think actually in the whole of Cork County she found 400. And the
Okay.
whole of Cork County was just over 100 recorded. And I think she's added some of them since to the record. But she found that in Cork and Ross in particular, we have an awful lot of them. And in particular, Evilary out in Chigila way seems to have a huge tradition of mass rocks.
Wow.
And I don't know what the reasons for that are. I suppose it could be social, economic,
Yes. Or has it
religious factors.
Or has
all
it to
thing-
do
or
with people remembering them?
it could be too, yeah, because
Yeah.
there's
Like people remember that they have an interest in them, they talk
Yeah.
about them,
yeah,
and they still
yeah.
stay.
You could be right, Pádraig, because
Yeah.
the Gaeltacht, as well as there in Evilary, the Ballingeary Gaeltacht, and people are probably more in touch with traditional stories,
Yeah.
and stuff gets remembered more, and it's a wilder landscape too. So, I know there's a mass rock on top of a mountain in Ballingeary that she talks about in her thesis, and I suppose liminal places like that, monuments are more likely to survive.
Yeah.
But I
yeah.
suppose by their very nature, they tend to be in wild places, mass rocks.
Yes. So have their significance before? Is there a possibility that there were significant religious sites before being used
Well,
in penal times?
Yeah, according to Hilary Bishop, anyway, they could have been, because often enough they're places in the landscape that people seem to have found significant, and there could have been already a tradition of ritual use, or that was remembered. So when the regular Catholic infrastructure broke down because Catholics were being persecuted, so people turned to kind of vernacular places of worship, whether they were, I couldn't tell you whether they were pre-Christian, but certainly some of them are very ancient. Sometimes mass rocks are near older churches, and even a stone was taken from an older church, like at Kilnadur in Johnstown, which is to the west of us in Kilmichael Parish. There's a mass rock with a cross carved into the stone, and it's said that the stone was taken from a nearby ruin of a church.
Wow.
And they picked a beautiful rock cleft that has a big holly growing on it, and yeah, you would wonder, did people pick beautiful places they found beautiful or special in some way, and were there older practices going on, whether Christian or otherwise? Yeah.
Like here is very hidden. It feels really safe place.
Yeah, it is.
At that time, but also very nearby there's an extensive view.
There is,
so it's
yeah.
kind of, it's worth visiting, even.
Oh yeah.
As the experience of being here.
I even find it a kind of pilgrimage experience just walking up here.
Yeah.
It's so beautiful, and the landowner has done such a great job of maintaining the path and protecting the trees that are here and everything,
Yeah.
and the monuments. Like it's really a very fragile place too, in the modern world, isn't it?
Yes, yes.
But he's done a great job of protecting it and keeping the tradition alive. So just about the, I don't know an awful lot about the history of the penal laws, but I know that I suppose the main periods in which priests were persecuted were the Cromwellian period in the 17th century when priests were being hunted and murdered. And then I think from 1695 into the mid-18th century was when the penal laws were sort of really being enforced. There was a story of a shebeen in Kerry where a priest was murdered by the woman who ran the shebeen and a group of men. I don't know why they murdered him, but they decided they'd try and get a bounty for him. So they took his head to Cork City, but it was like the year of emancipation and the laws had changed and there was no way anyone, even if the laws hadn't changed, I doubt they would have got a bounty for it, and they ended up throwing his head into the River Lee. So that's an old story that's preserved in the folklore archives.
Wow.
Yeah. And I think Hilary Bishop discusses it in one of her articles. She's got a great website called Find a Mass Rock where she lists all the sites from her thesis in Cork, and other people can contribute. So
yeah,
it's something worth looking at.
So we've digressed a bit, but we're going to continue on up the hill here to the actual Mass Rock. Yeah, so Lanamid Ring in Ish. Yn ord suasans na harde agus be mid fiachnamach an tir fall. Agus beder go vekmist ga chiach danan on archo huas Keane. So we've this place really is very hidden. You know, that's the first thing I felt about it once we arrived in here. It's really it supports the idea of it being a mass rock, and it's quite a long track up from the road through all really overgrown, fantastic place. So Bernadette is going to tell us what the story is.
Yeah. Well, yeah, what you said there, I do 100% agree. It is very hidden. It's amazing it's still here, really. But this is a stone that the landowner Pádraig showed me, and the story he tells is that all these unusual markings we can see in this huge boulder were, as Pádraig said, from the time the priest was pursued by hounds and men from Macroom below. The story goes that he ran over the rock and the hounds did, and the men were cracking whips. So that's the striations in the stone are the whip marks.
Yes.
And those kind of cup marks you see are the hound's feet and the priest's feet as well. And they're quite different. Like if you look at the side of the stone there, Pádraig, those ones are...
Oh, yes.
They're almost more man-made looking, aren't they? These ones you can tell are natural on top. So I was actually wondering if those ones were enhanced.
And it's a limestone, it's not?
It's I think it's a sandstone boulder, is it?
Yeah.
But I mean, we could be on the edge of the limestone here, couldn't we? Because Segura is limestone.
Yeah.
And it's I think it's what's called, geologically it is a glacial erratic. So it's a huge boulder that was left behind after the Ice Age. Yeah. So I don't know much about prehistoric rock art or anything like that. So I wrote to Dr. Elizabeth Toames, who was one of my lecturers in college, and I showed her pictures of the stone. And in her opinion, they're probably all natural features, though it's not impossible. Some of the ones on the side here were enhanced.
Yes.
You know, maybe. She thinks more than likely they probably are natural features, but she pointed out that in her study of the sites of the Boyne Valley, you had stones like this with interesting features that were picked out and kind of, you know, treated with reverence alongside ones where they had actual rock art that was carved out by people. So they often were significant. And this one was obviously seen as significant in Toames because people had stories about it and came here.
Yes.
You know.
Yes.
And
so even if it is a natural formation, it means the story was so strong among the people that this was where we'll mark this as being the part of the story.
Exactly,
which makes
it,
it's a concrete expression of the story.
Oh yeah, very
that
true.
Remains.
absolutely, yeah.
So
The mass rock is kind of straight ahead. It's impossible to see it now because it's got so overgrown, but it's straight ahead of us to the south. It seems to be a natural outcropping of rock, and from what I could see, it's not entirely flat. But I suppose that's, you know, the memory is still there of it being a mass rock regardless. And it's not impossible that there was a flat stone put on top of it, you know.
yes.
Or maybe even this stone was used as a mass rock for all we know, you know.
So we'll go on and we'll look for that another bit. I have a billock here, which might help in clearing around it.
Yeah, yeah.
And brilliant. Yeah, we found the rock eventually, but it's completely overgrown. Really, it can be seen in the winter when the greenery dies down. It can be seen more clearly. So Bernadette had quite a job to find it again. So yeah, it's a big lump of rock, really, cleft of rock. That I suppose the priest would have stood here and maybe or stood on the other side, do you think?
Maybe, yeah, because it goes up slope, so from the field you're at the top of the rock. So
Yeah.
maybe if it was used as a mass rock, then presumably there could have been a flat stone on top of it, or even a wooden altar, even though you were supposed to use stone, I think, technically, but
Okay.
yeah. It's possible too that it just kind of became enshrined in people's memories as a mass rock because the priest was killed here.
Yes.
Or that mass was celebrated here after, who knows?
And you would be inclined to trust it, really. If
Oh yeah,
people say
well
that,
yeah, I mean...
they pass
yeah,
that down
I
through
would.
generations.
Yeah. And this here is, this is what Pádraig called the red spot. It's also described in, we've got some Kilmichael parish records that are now in Dunmanway, and the local priest put them online on the Kilmichael parish website. So on the website, this is actually mentioned in a priest's notes from the early 20th century, so that's another source for it.
Okay.
So it's known as the red spot.
He mentions that.
Yeah, and Pádraig, the landowner, talks about it too as the red spot where the priest's blood was spilled. So because of that, nothing would ever grow on it afterwards. So, I mean, I can see a little bit of meadowsweet growing here, but it is actually... It seems like it would be kind of barren by nature, yeah. So, I mean, there could be something to it, I guess.
He did say that things might grow in over it, but the
Over
actual
it.
spot...
But not on it.
But not on it, you know,
yeah.
which
That's interesting, yeah.
at this time of the year,
Yeah.
everything is really alive.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fantastic.
So, are you in the mood for an old mass, Pádraig? You're not ordained, are you?
No, I could give it a go. Like, with only two of you here, like, to be
Yeah.
kind of, I'd be safe enough. But you might
If you're
might
Latin,
rat on me, like.
I wonder if your Latin's as good as your Irish.
No, it's
No.
not, I'm afraid.
Ah, well.
No.
We'll leave it
I
for another
forget
time,
it.
so.
Yeah. Brilliant. Got a meal, am
Amen. Yeah, we've got people.
Amen.
Well done.